Sorry, 60 minutes.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Okay. We're good. You just remind people because we're still doing these over YouTube. They have to use this on.
Good afternoon. Let's call today's Board of Trustees meeting to order at, what time is it? 4:02 p.m. Vicky, if you could please call the roll.
Falkowski,
Present.
Epic, Martin,
Here.
McNamee, Nunnally, Sheets,
Here.
Spence, Swanson,
Here.
Zibble.
Here.
Thank you, everyone. And Ms. Nunnally advised that she'll be unable to make the meeting today. And just a friendly reminder, since the meeting is being broadcast on YouTube, when you are going to speak, if you could please make sure your microphone is lit up green, so all the recording equipment will catch your voice. If we could please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Mr. Zibble, would you be able to read the mission statement today?
Mission statement for Laketran. Laketran is committed to providing quality public transportation services to all Lake County residents with special emphasis on meeting the transportation needs of seniors and people with disabilities.
Thank you very much. And I do see that we are going to have a number of public comments in the room today. And the only requirement here is if you could please state your name for the record, and if you could please keep your comment to about 3 minutes in length. And the first person I have on the list is John Murphy. Please come up to the podium, and if the microphone's not on, if you could please press the push button and it'll turn green.
It's green.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Murphy. I'm a driver here at Laketran. I've been here almost 23 years, and I'm also the chairman of our union. I asked a number of my associates and co-workers if they would attend this meeting so that if there's any questions that you would have for the people that are going to be affected with this new headquarters addition that we're going to do. We got plenty of people here that can answer any of your questions, and maybe even want to make a statement. We've even got our most senior driver who used to work at the Olive Street and also over on Bacon Road, before we had the building here. So with that comment, we're here to answer any questions, and we hope that the board comes to a great decision on the future of Laketran.
Thank you very much. And the next comment I have on the list is, excuse me, the next comment I have on the list is going to be from Ed Lawson.
Hi, my name's Ed Lawson. I've been employed here at Laketran roughly a year. I've been recently promoted to one of two the lead mechanics here at Laketran. And if you have any questions as to the maintenance needs and concerns of what this levy could or couldn't do, I would be more than happy to answer any questions. We are currently, in my professional opinion, working past capacity. We are out of room in the maintenance department and in our storage. So I would highly encourage expansion. It's only going to get more expensive in the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ben, could you maybe help me with that one? The last part of this name has a number 40 next to it.
Sorry, we can't read your name. Who's driver 40?
Oh, gosh, I am, but I am not commenting. I'm Kathleen.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. The fourth one, it looks like it might be John W. Is that possible? Josh W. Okay, so why don't we change the format of this? Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment today? And from my colleagues on the board, did anyone have anything that they had to say to any public comments? Okay, well, thank you everyone for your comments. We greatly appreciate any and all feedback. The next item is the approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the Laketran Board of Trustees Board Meeting Minutes of June 28th, 2021? Motion made by Ms. McNamee. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Swanson. Vicky, if we could please call the roll.
Epic. Martin,
Yes.
McNamee,
Yes.
Sheets. Spence,
Abstain.
Swanson,
Yes.
Zibble.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over for our first presentation. It looks like it's going to be Jake Altman to present the Auditor of State's Award with Distinction.
Hi there. Delighted to be here today on behalf of Auditor of State Keith Faber to present Laketran with the Auditor of State Award with Distinction. This award puts you in a pretty good spot. We audit over 6,000 entities across the state, and about 3 to 5% of them every year qualify for this award. So that's not very many. And so it speaks to the way that everyone works here towards fiscal excellence, from you guys on the board to all the staff. Everybody's working hard to make sure things are done the right way and that the taxpayers' money is being spent well. And it especially speaks to the professionalism and the leadership of Ms. Colling and her team in the finance department. So on behalf of Auditor of State Keith Faber, congratulations.
Thank you. And congratulations to Lisa, especially. Thank you. And thank you again, Lisa. And at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Tim Rosenberger for a strategic plan update.
No, and you can sit, if you want to come to the podium or do whatever, you can, it's up to you.
Over here, I guess. Can everybody hear me okay? So next, there we go. Okay, so here's our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the project overview and the schedule, talk a little bit about the board interview results, the existing conditions review that we've been doing, and a SWOT analysis that goes with that. The meeting we had a couple weeks ago with staff talking about the vision and goals, and a mark your calendar update about the board retreat and then next steps and what happens next. So I click and it goes, there we go. So just to remind, this is the 3 questions that we're looking to answer with the strategic planning process. Where are we now? Where are we going?
Hi, Tim, not to interrupt you, but I think we're having a little difficulty hearing you. If you could maybe move the microphone.
Can you hear
a
me
little.
better now or? Yep. Okay, I'll hold it like this. How's that? Yeah, it is on, yeah. I can hear an echo on there, but yeah. Okay. I just need to be louder. This is the schedule, and we're on schedule. We have this briefing tonight. Earlier in the month, we had a management workshop with Laketran management and went over the existing conditions material and some other things that we're going to be talking about. Tonight, we have another workshop coming up to talk about the recommendations, end of August, beginning of September, and then our board retreat that is at the date of the regular board meeting in September. So we'll be talking about that a little later on. So the interviews, I interviewed every one of you over a couple of week period there in late May, early June. We talked about a broad range of topics, about your background and interest in Laketran, some of the strengths and weaknesses of the organization and its services. and your personal goals for Laketran, and then Laketran's role and its importance in the community. So here are some of the results of that in kind of broad terms. A lot of positive comments about the organization, about the people, and about the service, and general agreement. Laketran is very important to the community, particularly the dial-a-ride service and service to older and disabled people. Strong public support in Lake County. There were some differences of opinion about that, but generally it was agreed it has some support. The staff is competent, helpful, and lots of other good things. And that was demonstrated by the response to COVID and how Laketran leapt into finding its place in serving people during that period and doing things that were a little out of its comfort zone in order to provide the services that were really needed by the community during that time. Generally, it's felt that Laketran has followed through, is in the process of following through on the levy campaign promises and the future focus areas on job connections and workforce development. We're going to talk about that a little more too. On the negative side, and there were some negatives, there is of course division on the need for the new maintenance facility and for that project. The supporters cited the need for space, not pace, but to grow and the fleet and also issues of employee retention and attraction. Others question the cost, question whether there is a need, and question the process and the program that's being discussed, and have some issues with that, with elements of that program. Some questioned Laketran spending and whether Laketran's always being a good steward of public funds, and also whether the public really understands what Laketran does and what's going on at the agency. There was some discussion about the need for more board member prep, basically learning more about Laketran, about public transportation and what Laketran does and its role in the community. And then the need for a more strategic and goal-oriented decision-making process in the agency and more of a safety focus around those decision-making processes. Anybody have anything to add to that, since you guys are the subject of this? Any questions about it or anything? I think I pretty much summarized, caught what you said there. Okay. I think, looking at who you are and what you do and what you did in your careers, for those of you who are retired, I think there's clearly a lot of commonality there. Most of the board members now have worked or currently work at for-profit businesses, a lot in manufacturing, and there is a lot of commonality among the board members, a lot of talent there that can be brought to bear on what Laketran's doing. I think the composition of the board and the interests of the board members suggest a couple of things and may suggest more things, but these were some things that have come to mind so far. One is using Laketran more effectively to develop Lake County's economy, workforce development, workforce training, and workforce connections. I think that came up in at least 3 or 4 of the calls, maybe more, that specific subject. And obviously it's on the minds of anybody that employs people right now because of the hard time that people are having finding good workers. Another piece that I think comes out of that is the need to use public sector or private sector, rather, thinking and approaches to make Laketran more effective, more efficient, use public funds more efficiently, and more innovative, more responsive to changes in the market. And I think that that's a valid thing that can be brought to bear on that. Laketran is not a business. Obviously, it is a public service and comes from a somewhat different perspective than a private for-profit business. But I think there certainly are some aspects of the way things are done at private businesses that could be very helpful and are often very helpful in public agencies. So that's that piece. Anybody have anything to say about that. I thank you very much for making yourselves available to talk to me, and look forward to working with you throughout this process, putting together the plan. So what is a vision statement? We met a couple weeks ago with the key staff, the top level staff at Laketran, to talk about the vision statement, go over the results of the existing conditions analysis that we've been doing, and the market analysis and some other things, and spent about half a day going through some of that material and talking about this stuff. So one of the aspects of that was talking about putting together a vision statement. We have a mission statement, but that's a little bit different thing. Slightly different purpose to that. And what a vision statement is, for those of you who haven't been through this kind of a process in your business or other work, is what it describes what the agency is trying to achieve in the long run and in the broadest sense. And we had a fun time going through vision statements of various businesses and taking a look at how well or how badly, in some cases, some of those vision statements look and work for those businesses. But the vision statement's supposed to embody the organization's culture, the values, and the guiding principles, and also guide decision making. So the vision statement really should guide the organization, and everything that the organization does really should flow down from that vision statement through the agency's goals and the objectives, and then the performance measures and a performance measurement system that we have set up for basically monitoring the performance of the agency and making sure that the agency is improving in its fulfillment of those objectives. It also guides the plan development. So we have the vision, the goals, and the objectives, and then that translates into the strategies and then the actions that will be recommended out of the strategic plan, and then the measures that we use to evaluate those strategies as we go through after the plan is through, and we start actually implementing those things and testing to make sure that they're having the desired effect and in improving the performance of the agency and basically fulfilling the goals and objectives. So this is Laketran's mission statement, and you just read it a little while ago. Committed to providing quality public transportation services to all Lake County residents, a special emphasis on meeting the transportation needs of seniors and people with disabilities. And that's kind of a starting place for the development of a vision statement. I think there's some other aspects there that we were talking about that we may try to work into the vision statement as well. But obviously, this is the commitment that Laketran has, and is going to definitely remain the top element of this. There may be some other things worked in there, like workforce development or workforce connections, things like that, because I think that's something that's very important too, and something that's probably going to be very important for the county over the next few years. Any questions on that process? So we'll be talking about that at the retreat next. I guess it's not next month yet, but in September. So.
Tim,
Yeah.
I just had a quick question. Will we be reviewing this mission statement and tweaking it or rewording it?
We
at all?
can. I mean, I think that that's something that we need to think about after we've developed the vision statement, because that mission statement probably ought to, flow out of that. But if we don't want to change it, I know that these things can be hard fought, so I don't, I don't want to hold up the parade by
Okay, I just wanted to
getting
make sure
involved
we
in a
were
big debate about it. Yeah.
just going to be at least address
Yeah, I
it
mean,
in some
sure.
shape
And
or
anything
form.
that we come up with in a vision statement is going to be consistent with this. Obviously, this is going to remain, the highest priority of what Laketran is doing. So, okay, next, existing conditions. So we've gone through. This is a very, very slight review of the information that we've gone through, and we'll be going through this in more detail with you in September, but we've done a pretty extensive existing conditions analysis, some of it borrowing from some of the past studies that we've done in the area, and some of it new analysis on new data that was provided to us by the staff. So just to run through a few things. Number one, we all know, I think, that Lake County is a challenging place to provide and to operate public transit efficiently. It's a relatively low density low population employment density. The residents per acre in the entire county is under 2, which is pretty low. It's quite a bit higher in some of the areas north of Route 2 and east of Painesville, or west of Painesville rather. Jobs per acre even lower, 0.66. But you see that is actually, the jobs are a little bit more concentrated. Now this map is showing density by the half mile square, I think. And the red areas are the higher density areas in residential, the blue areas in employment, and then purple areas, and I don't think there are, because there isn't too much mixing. There aren't any really high density purple areas there. But those would be places that would have high density of both population and employment together. So you see, although the overall density of the county is pretty low, when you get in this sort of western area and you look at that area on the north of Tyler Boulevard and north of I-90, you do see some places where the densities are fairly high, particularly of employment. So those are something for us to be thinking about as we take a look at the service and where that's going. Probably some of the things that are going to be really shaping what's going on with Laketran over the next 10 years or so is the aging of the population and the increased level of disability that will come along with that, and also will grow for reasons not completely related to aging. The senior population has gone up by nearly double in the last 30 years. And is now almost 20% of the population over age 65. The median age is about 6 years older than the country and about 4 years older than the state on average. So it's, you know, an older community, and as a result of that, is likely to have increasing demand for the demand response service, dial-a-ride service, and we're of course seeing that occur all the time, the growth in that service. Disability also going up, and the percentage of the population that is disabled went up from 10.4 to 13.4%. So basically a 30% increase between 2010 and 2019. People over age 65, over a third, have a disability. So, and again, those numbers are going up. They're going up because of the aging of the population, and they're going up because disability is going up among younger people as well. So that again is going to be further driving demand for that dial-a-ride service. And of course that drives the cost up. You may be in a situation, and you have been over the last several years, where you're carrying fewer people, but at a higher cost per trip. And that's something that you can expect to continue over the next foreseeable future, really, because of this growth in disability and the growth in dial-a-ride service that will come with that. Another piece of this that was fairly interesting, we've been able to get this data recently about lower paying jobs that pay less than $1,250 a month. I don't know where that number came from exactly, but this is provided in the American Community Survey, and it was pretty interesting. Almost 26% of jobs in the county pay less than $1,250 a month. And unlike when you look at jobs, I didn't include the map, but when you look at jobs as a whole in the county, they're very concentrated. They're along Route 2 and along Tyler Boulevard. When you look at these lower paying jobs, which are the jobs that people would have that would be more likely to actually need public transit, those are not concentrated. They're actually fairly well distributed throughout the county, and there's even fairly high numbers of them out in some of the eastern parts of the county around Madison and Perry and some of those places. So this is a challenge again, you know, and it's a challenge that it's a challenge in some ways to looking at what we could do about this and for this with the fixed route service beyond what we were already doing with the new routes on Tyler Boulevard, but also a challenge with the potential for increase in the non-disabled dial-a-ride service to get people to these jobs in some of these areas. But these employers in many of these areas, I'm sure right now, are struggling to find employees, and that's something that we'd like to be able to help with as we go forward. This is something I was talking about a few minutes ago. The ridership on the system has actually gone down over the past 10 years. We've actually lost ridership slightly, about 6% overall, I think. It is on there, but the expenses have actually gone up. And when you take a look at what's happening on the right, you see the ridership going down on the fixed route local service. You see the ridership going down on the commuter express service pretty significantly, but the ridership going up pretty significantly on dial-a-ride. And that is why you're seeing the overall ridership go down, but the costs going up, because the cost of those dial-a-ride trips is so much more than the cost of trips that we're providing on the commuter express or the local bus service. So just to summarize that, Lake County is a challenging place to serve efficiently, low density, pedestrian access is not great. There's a lot of places where there's no sidewalks, no crosswalks. The poverty level is low, the incomes are high, vehicle ownership very high, close to 2 cars per household. So obviously, a tough place to be providing public transit, but there are significant segments of the population that need it. Future demand is going to be driven very heavily by transit-dependent people, those low-income workers, providing employers with access to workers, possibly including outside of Lake County, and then dial-a-ride service and the growing number of seniors and disabled people who are transit-dependent and who depend on Laketran more than anyone. There. Whoop. So this is a SWOT analysis, and I'm not going to read you this because obviously there's a lot to it, but this is just taking a look at the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. There's a lot of things on there. The strengths I think we've looked at, we've talked about, and some of the weaknesses. Some of the opportunities there, I think support from employers looking for new labor markets, both political support, but potentially also financial or other kinds of support to get more people on the buses and get more people coming to work on those buses. We have younger retirees as a potential employee source as we look into the difficulties that even Laketran has had in trying to fill some jobs. And then the potential benefits of the electric vehicle transition, which I think are going to be something very exciting for the agency. Some of the threats, I think ongoing division among board members. I think that's not, remains to be seen, but something that could be a real problem that I've seen be a real problem at other agencies. Uncertainties about federal funding, the temporary nature of the tax increase, the fact that, in just a few years, we'll be having to think about going back out for that if we indeed want to continue it. Increasing costs due to dial-a-ride demand and increasing costs due to increasing wages. We're in a labor shortage right now. We have upward pressure on wages, and that's liable to result in higher costs going forward. And then increasing auto ownership, what we've seen all over the country with some of the research that we've done on the reason why transit ridership has gone down on the fixed route side has been lower income people buying cars. And as wages have gone up, they are now in the car market, and in some cases are doing that. So that's something that we need to keep watching. And then possible issues with electric vehicles. It's an opportunity, but also a potential threat if something happens there. Don't foresee that, but there are other areas of innovation that we're going to be looking at that we want to look at very carefully to make sure that we're not on the bleeding edge of some of that, some of these new technologies and new ideas that are out there in the market. That's basically my presentation for tonight. If you have any questions, I'll be around for a little while here to answer them. But we have this retreat that we're going to be having on the 27th. It's going to be about a half-day thing, so a few hours before the regular board meeting. We'll be getting together here, and I'll have some of our other people from WSP and our subcontractors here to work with us to talk about finalizing that vision and the goals and objectives. Talk about the existing conditions, go through some exercises and some group work on looking at some of the data and some recommendations, developing recommendations to come out of that. So those are usually a lot of fun, and we've certainly enjoyed having them at other places. Expect to here. I think lunch will be provided, so depending on what the timing is. So that's something to look forward to. So anyway, that's my presentation, and if you have any questions or anything to say, be happy to take that.
Are there any questions for Tim at this time? Don't see any. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, thank you.
I'll turn the meeting over to Ben for a Govenda overview.
I will be very quick because I know we have a lot going on today. So I've mentioned to you all about Govenda as a new source of information that we have. Of course, Zoom is going to cause me to have a challenge. But I wanted to real quick make sure everyone knows how to get to it. If you just Google Govenda, it will take you to their homepage. So it's Govenda Corporate Governance. The purpose of this web-based project is to give board members more access to our information and make it easier for you to have a consolidated place for all the things you do with Laketran. So the objective here is to make it easier for you to get what you need from us. Basically, you just go to login up here in the top if you have not already done that. I know this is sort of a normal thing for a lot of you, but click board members, and then ultimately you'll come to this page where you will have a login. I use this for several organizations. You'll obviously just, I think, well, you may have others, but you should probably just have one, which is Laketran. So if you have a different organization, you pick Laketran. Really, of course, it cuts off part of the thing. So a lot of the purpose here, like I said, is to give you access and easier access to the things that we do on a daily basis. This is a more powerful tool than we're starting off using, but you got to walk or you got to crawl before you can walk. So baby steps. Most importantly, this will give you quick and easy access in a same place all the time for your board packets, instead of having to kind of dig through your email or try and figure out where you put your paper copy. The meeting closest to the date will show up at the top. So obviously you see our meeting here today. This will have all the meeting information in it. The board book is the button you probably want to pay attention to the most. This will give you access to our agenda. So this will take you right into tonight's agenda. One of the things that I think is really helpful for the board in this is that as you look down the agenda, you can see everything we're doing tonight. But anytime you see this little piece of paper, that will link you right to whatever that document is. So if you want to see the procurement manual briefing paper, you click the button, it brings you right to it and makes it very easy to navigate, keeping your agenda over here on the left. So instead of having to look at page 110, you can just say, I want to look at this thing. I'm going to click it. It's going to take me right to it. Should make it much easier for you to find these things. It also means they will continue to be there after you've looked at them. So if you wonder, hey, what did I do? Or what did we talk about a year ago? You will still have access to that in the same portal, and you'll have access to all the documents that you've already seen. So you have, essentially every document that we have provided. Here's my report, and they should be easy for you to get. They should be easy to print out and maybe zoom in a little better than you have in the past, and generally give you a little bit higher quality documents for your board experience. And hopefully, again, centralizing all that stuff for you so you have one place to go. One of the other things that I think is really nice is it's a better way for us to share information and documents with you. So in addition to those meetings, if you click the meeting button, you can see every meeting you have coming up. You can also, these can be turned into PDFs. You can print them. You can kind of do whatever you would like to do. And I can walk you through those individually to not take up a ton of time. But the other two sections that we're really using right now that I think are great are the directory. If you ever need to get in touch with any of your peers, you have contact information here for your peers and for staff. So if you have a question, you need to email Andrea or me or anybody else, you have easy access to those things. But then this document section, today, if you were trying to find a previous board packet, you'd just search your email for how many years back, or you'd have to search a bunch of things. It could be very difficult for you to find. We haven't been I haven't been emailing you the PowerPoint presentations we've used because they're very large documents, so they don't email well. Those are all in here now. So you have access to board packets. I put all the ones in here that we had electronic PDFs of. So going back to 2013, you can look at old board packets. I know this is, you guys on the weekend, you really like to spend a lot of time reading old Laketran board packets. There's also all the monthly PowerPoint presentations that we started this year. So you'll have access to all those. The one from the work session is already in here. So you can click those documents and get to them very easily and review anything that we went over in the past. So again, I think this is going to continue to grow in the power and use. But for right now, I really just wanted a place for you to have an easier sort of relationship as a board member with the information that comes from our organization. If we are providing you a paper board packet now, you will continue to get that. There will be no interruption or change in that, but this will continue to be here for all of you to sort of use and, access documents that you would like, and if there's more things you would like us to add to it, those are things we're going to be working on as time goes. But again, my real hope is that you can really have a better, easier to navigate Laketran board experience. So that's a quick go through of what it is. If you'd like more info about it later, I'd be happy to go over it with you one-on-one or whatever. So I won't keep the meeting going with that, but I will now. Sorry. So does anyone have any questions about Govenda thus far? Lost my spiel there for a second.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Ben. I will turn the meeting over to Lisa for the financial statements. You're fine to sit there if you have a
Am I
microphone.
okay? Okay, I just want to make sure. So, so it's just our financial statements through May. And if we could just go to the second page of the PowerPoint, which would be the May 2021 year-to-date revenue comparison. Again, this is our Schedule B. It's on pages 11 and 12 of the board packet. It's pretty much doing a comparison of our revenues for 2021 to the budget. I throw in the 2020 actual just to kind of give you a little history. But again, 2020 versus 2021, they're just different. So our total revenue for 2021 that we've received actual to date at the end of May is $11,806,510. We estimated we would be at $9,907,006. So we are approximately $1,899,504 more than budget. And that's mainly due to, at this point, the sales tax. I did want to make one notation on here because we talked about all those different grants and stuff that we got. We did draw some of those down, the one-time grants that we got for COVID. Mainly was the CARES Act, but there are still a little bit of funds left on that. And then we got two new grants, the American Recovery and the CRISA. Those funds have not been drawn down. They were not put into our budget numbers because we did not know about them when we started this. So you will see those probably in June or July. I will add those in and put them in. I've been reluctant to just go and draw that money down because I want to be 100% sure that we are not double counting anything. Because if we draw down and we draw down on another grant, that would be very bad. And we don't ever want to lose our funding for that. So I've been just a little bit extra careful on that. So down in the bottom are some of my remarks regarding some of the things for the revenues. Our actual fares obviously are less for 2021 compared to 21 budget and 20 actual. And really that's due to COVID. Senior centers still, as far as I know of, as of May, have still not opened back up, but it is anticipated that they will begin to open as we get into the summer months. 2021 actual sales tax revenue represents January through May. 2021 sales tax is up about 1.4 million or 19.5% over budget. Again, I attribute this, I mean, obviously the sales tax was increased, but I also attribute it to COVID because the last couple months of COVID, it really jumped up. So it's really going to be a challenge when we go to do this budget for next year, because I certainly wouldn't want to take a double-digit increase in sales tax and anticipate that for the future months. So we'll probably look at a little bit of history, 10 and 5 years averaging and stuff when we go to do that. And I have a spreadsheet that's also provided to you each month, I believe it's in the packet, for sales tax to kind of give you a little bit of history on that. Miscellaneous revenue, again, is also up because workers' comp gave out more money due to COVID, but our normal for that's usually around $250,000 a year for the workers' comp piece. If we could go to the second page, which will be our May expenses. Our total operating expenses year to date for 2021 through May is $7,279,280. We had anticipated we'd be at about $9,167,697, and our expenses that have been spent less than budget, again, is about $1,888,417. And part of that's just due to hiring and being able to hire people, in addition to watching our ridership and doing it as we need it, not just doing it because to do it, just to hire people. So our wages are down over 2021 budget and 20 actual. Even though the board have passed that new organizational chart to hire more, it's just they're working on it as the ridership predicts. Our purchase transportation is down compared to 2021. That's mainly for the seniors through Breckenridge, so that's naturally going to be down due to COVID. Our services are down compared to 21 budget and 20 actual. That could be just due to timing of payments. We did have a couple of things last year, like the cost of the levy and that, and the services that did drive that up a little bit. Supplies are down just due to spending less on dial-a-ride parts due to getting our new buses. And just as a reminder that the middle of March of last year, we did shut down completely. So business last year is kind of went to a halt. And then if we could move on to the next page, and this is just kind of a summary for us, basically telling us what our total revenues for 2021 are compared to our operating expenses and then our capital expenses, and then kind of giving you what our income is year to date is about $2,413,547. Then we also have our depreciation that we put in there, basically netting out our income. So other than our operating expenses, that's we can go to the cash balance on the next page, kind of give you an idea. So to break out our capital, to break out our cash balance, we have our operating piece that we try to keep a few months worth. We keep that at about $7,987,414. Capital, we have a chart in here that kind of explains that. That's what we've committed for 20 and things that we've done for 21. The cash that we will be spending, our headquarters building, estimating, setting the cash aside to do that. And then you'll see that grow as I draw down those grant funds. We'll increase that money to be able to set aside. And then, of course, our special transportation services. And then that's all that I have for the operating, if there's any questions on that. And then I kind of have the STS. I can go over it or I could save time. It's pretty much stagnant. There's a little bit of usage. It is picking up a little bit, but that's kind of a small piece. And if we can just maybe go to the capital projects just to go there. Okay. Kind of just to give you a breakdown based on 21, of course, 22, 23, 24, and 25, those are estimated. These are just basically the commitments kind of that we've already, for our buses, because every year we replace our dial-a-ride buses. That's kind of what that is until we have more idea going forward what we're going to be doing and the projects that Andrea will apply for. But based on what we have now for 21, and what we estimated through 25, we kind of broke it out. Our federal portion is about 48.1, our local is about 45.2, and our state is about 6.7%. And again, this assumes the estimated headquarters cost in there, and any future projects that we have going on. And again, there is a spreadsheet for the capital that's broken down with more detail. And I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions at this time for Lisa? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the May 2021 financial statements subject to audit?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Zibble, seconded by Ms. Spence. Vicky, if you could please call the roll.
Epic,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
McNamee,
Yes.
Sheets. Spence,
Yes.
Swanson, Zibble.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. And at this time, we will talk about the procurement manual.
Hello, I'm going to stand at the podium because I can't see this side of the room, but I will be talking to the board again tonight about procurement, and in this meeting, our revised procurement manual. So why do we have a procurement manual? First off, it's required by 2 CFR 200, the uniform guidance for grant recipients. But secondly, and just as importantly, a procurement manual is an essential document for Laketran. While I oversee our capital procurements, I don't oversee every micro purchase or small purchase our organization makes. Plus, I go on vacation. Things could happen. I could go out for a medical procedure. So it's important that the institutional knowledge of our organization is shared so that all of our procurement actions can be in compliance. During our 2020 triennial review, which happened in April and May of this year, the DMP group was our review team, and they recommended some revisions to the manual to help improve our compliance. So before I go into detail on the major revisions made to the procurement manual, I want to make clear that these revisions do not constitute a failure on our part to be compliant. Mainly, these revisions are codifying procedures that are already in place and making a process for documenting these procedures. The FTA is really big on documentation. It's not enough to tell the FTA that we do something. They have to see proof in the form of a physical checklist, a form written in the policy manual, etc. So numerically, through the procurement manual, section 2.4.3, real property, it was recommended by the reviewers that we include language that confirms our compliance with the 1973 Flood Disaster Protection Act. Basically, Laketran will make sure that before we perform any construction on real property, that we will make sure that the property is not in a floodplain and then document that process. Or if the property is in a floodplain, we will obtain flood insurance. During the design process for both the Frank J. Polivka Transit Center and the Wycliffe Park and Ride, CT consultants performed that analysis for us, and the documentation of the flood zone maps are seen here in the screenshots below. Section 211, transit vehicle manufacturers. So this section clarifies the processes that Laketran will take to document that transit vehicle manufacturers are compliant with DBE regulations. So we've talked a teeny bit about DBE regulations this year, but if you were present on the board in 2019, I gave a very exciting presentation on DBEs. You might remember that every 3 years, Laketran has to develop a goal for DBE participation on federally funded projects. Well, transit vehicle manufacturers have to establish their own goals in the manufacture of transit vehicles. So FTA maintains a list of compliant TVMs, and it is Laketran's responsibility anytime before we award a contract to a bus manufacturer that we go to FTA's website and we review to make sure that they are on this list. So that's what the screenshot is. You can see I've highlighted New Flyer, who has just delivered our beautiful diesel and battery electric buses. Section 212 on Buy America. The review team for our triennial review did not actually make any requests for revisions to this section, But in preparation for the procurement of the replacement ventilation system that Keith will be talking about later, I wanted to brush up on my understanding of Buy America regulations. And I read a really good legal digest from the Transportation Research Board on Buy America regulations. So I wanted to incorporate what I learned in that legal digest into our procurement manual. All right, verification of responsible contractors. During our triennial review, this was the single finding that we had. The federal regulations require that for procurements over $25,000, that contractors are evaluated for integrity, compliance with public policy, past performance, and evaluation of their financial and technical resources. We pretty much always do these steps during our procurement process. However, these steps were not documented. So since we could not demonstrate proof to FTA, we received a finding. So just as an example, earlier this year, we procured lawn and landscape maintenance services. And as part of the procurement and the proposals, we asked the vendors to submit a list of equipment so that we could evaluate their technical resources. So it's in everybody's proposal that was submitted, but it wasn't on a checklist. It wasn't on a form. So I had nothing to show FTA during our triennial review. So we've always been doing this kind of work, but there's some things we need to button up. So in order to improve our compliance, I reached out to my peers in the transit industry and developed a form. You can kind of see it here at the bottom, screenshot. It's a responsibility determination form. And I'll be using that in all of our future procurements so that we can, improve our compliance. Last month and in my director's report for this month, I described how procurement is the largest area of findings in all triennial reviews nationwide. It's actually increased from 20 to 24% of all findings are in the area of procurement. I was on a webinar earlier this month with FTA, and responsibility determinations is an area of increased scrutiny by FTA and an area of lots of findings. So we're in good company, but that doesn't mean we can't improve. So during our next triennial review, we will have rectified this issue and will be in compliance. This section has not changed how Laketran does business, but it codifies our practices. Like in previous slides, and as I've said before, if the practice is not written down, it doesn't count. So these prohibited procurement actions are now codified in the procurement manual. And lastly, the review team asked that I update the language on MPRs and FFRs. MPRs stand for Milestone Progress Reports, and that's the quarterly report I make to FTA to update them on the status of grant-funded projects. Lisa performs the FFR, which is the financial aspect of the grants, and she also does that quarterly. So in conclusion, in order to close out the corrective action from our triennial review, the review team and FTA have required that we update the procurement manual and submit a revised copy to the regional FTA office in Chicago. Therefore, I recommend to the Board of Trustees that we approve this new version so that I can submit it to FTA and close out our corrective action from our 2020 triennial review. Any questions? The whole procurement manual is in your board packet as well.
Seeing no questions, is there a motion to approve the updates to the Laketran procurement manual? Motion made by Ms. McNamee. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Swanson. Vicky, if you could please call the roll.
Epic,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
McNamee,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Spence,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Zibble.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. And I will now turn the meeting over to Keith to talk about the ventilation system for the garage.
Good afternoon. I'm here to seek approval from the board to Board of Trustees to enter into and execute a contract for the purchase and installation of a replacement ventilation system for the garage. So I start off, this is an aerial view of the maintenance area only here at Laketran. We marked some of the fans, some of the units on the roof so the board could see them. Our units in the red are the ducted units primarily around the perimeter of the building. The green are what I commonly refer to as ceiling fans. They're unducted and the makeup air units along the center of the areas. There are a couple fans that we didn't include in this intentionally. There is one fan over what's now our training room, which should become our dispatcher area. There's one at the top of the picture, which was replaced in 2015. There's one in our oil room. It's at the lower left of the building, and the one over our maintenance offices, which the plan is to remodel. I'll explain a little more about the fans coming up. So exhaust fans on the roof, most are original to the building in 91 or 97. In the back of that picture, there's a green one. That's the one that was replaced in, I think, 15 it was. They all have preventive maintenance and inspection schedule. Back in the day, around 2006, there wasn't a schedule. I worked with our engineer that was on staff and an HVAC vendor to get an inspection and PM schedule for the fans. It was recommended that all fans be replaced, that all of them were past their useful life. Talking to a bunch of people in maintenance that fixed things, that was a little hard to swallow. So we had some internal discussions here and we pulled it out of the overall construction project. I kept feeling that we should fix the fans that could be fixed and, you know, replace the ones that were past repair. So I figured it'd save us on a general contractor markup. And I think with proposals just from ventilation people that we would get a better price rather than a sub for the winning builder. So on this project, we could lower our cost. We got two proposals in then. Both the proposers suggested we replace every fan on the roof again. When I went out for the proposals, even Ben told me that I was expecting too deep of an evaluation of the fans and that I probably wouldn't get what I was expecting. And he was right. So we did our own. We did it internally with our own people. We went through, we pulled some fans apart and checked them ourselves. So a little bit about the fans. This is from our garage floor looking up at what I call a non-ducted fan. On this, I'll go back one, that unit is sitting on a curb on the roof. The motor in it is almost the size of a 55-gallon drum. So it's a heavy unit. Under that unit are shutters that dampen the air when the fan's not on so we don't lose air through the ceiling or through open shutters. Underneath that, do you have the mouse? Can you point to the grid on it? There's a grid underneath those fans that's welded to the framework of the building. You can't get to the louvers. We could see these, we could touch them. We can't fix springs, we can't take them out, we can't put them in. To do that, the fan, we estimate at 100 or 800 pounds, has to come off the roof, which you need cranes and rigging to remove the fan. So this is a picture again from our garage floor up at a ducted fan. I assume that there was some type of dampener or louvers underneath this ducted fan, but never seeing it and without it being in our PM schedule, it was an assumption. My team helped me. They took a couple fans apart and these are installed identically to the non-ducted fans. There's the louvers underneath them. There's a grid underneath it. Even if you remove the ductwork, you still can't get to them. You can't service them or lube them or maintain them from the roof. If I didn't say it before, they close on spring tension. springs are up to 30 years old and springs are worn out, and then the slats stick on them. So that was never part of the maintenance plan because you can't service them. So we started our own in-house evaluation to make sure we weren't being upsold on these units. We started off making sure there wasn't a power or belt issue. You know, the easiest step first, make sure that's why something might not be operating. Got all that straightened out, made sure we had power to the fans, all of them, and belts attached. We found that 5 of the fans don't operate at all. You know, this maybe I didn't know the whole number, but at least 4 out of the 5 was not a surprise to me. They were found and identified with our normal inspections. Turning those on until I explain the makeup errors would create an air balance issue in the building. So I'll explain that a little more when we go to the makeup errors. So some of the repairs were put off because of expected construction. So we decided not to do them at the time. We found some that had shutter damage. One of the ones that Mark and his team pulled off, the actual shutters underneath it, like something went through it, were damaged and laying in the bottom of the ductwork. I found some that have a bad vibration showing that there's a problem with the actual motor in the fan. Then we walked around the garage and did our own airflow checks through the ductwork. We found ducts stuck open. We found ducts stuck open, again, creating an inefficiency in the heating season. The one was operating as it should, the one that was replaced in 2015. In the newer units, that one in particular has a dampener on the top, which standing on the roof, you could get to it and service it. It's not sandwiched between the motor and the roof deck. And from what a different architect had told me, other ones that have louvers underneath now are movable. They're hinged, so you could get to the louvers. So we moved on to the non-ducted fans, the ones that you could see from underneath the roof deck. We have one that's failing. It's starting to come apart. We think something's about ready to season. If it does, any piece smaller than the opening in that grate will come down on either a vehicle or a person if they're underneath it. 7 of them, a BAS is a building automation system. 7 of the 15 do not operate with our building automation system. We tested them both ways. One is turning and the shutters are opening, but it's struggling to move air. I don't know if there's slippage in the motor causing the fan not to spin the way it was. And one I found that's making sounds of an internal motor problem back in our wash bays. So getting on to the makeup errors, I've shown the board pictures of makeup errors. Here's some of the issues that we see with the makeup errors. You could see all the doors in the pictures. We've sealed those. We've caulked them, we've painted them. Again, I'll explain a little more. So the makeup error, it balances the pressure inside the building. In just talking about our parking garage, there is 6 makeup errors and there's 12 exhaust fans. So they work in a circuit. You're pulling so much air out, the makeup air has to push air in. So it takes ambient air, it filters it. In the winter, it heats it. They're gas fired and forces the same cubic feet per minute into the building that's exhausting out. We've had long-standing problems with balance in the building. This is why some of the fans, exhaust fans, were deferred. We knew 2 of these didn't work. We've known it for a long time. If I fix the exhaust fan and turn them on, you create an imbalance. And back in the day when dispatch was over here in operation, if you open a door, it could suck papers off a desk up here. Or doors don't close, or you push a door and it sucks you through it. Some of the older drivers could probably remember that for us. These have been part of our plan to replace for years, these makeup errors. They've been part of our capital plan and our TAM plan, which is Transit Asset Management Plan. We've discussed it with a previous board, a previous CEO. It was tabled due to funding years ago. And that first picture of them the aerial shot of the building, the closest reach to those units is 125 feet. So it takes a pretty big crane or a helicopter to get them in there. And then most recently, our last discussions, they were a little tabled because it was in the original plan for the building modifications. So on the makeup area, again, we had the same preventive maintenance plan created by the same vendor with the same engineer. They had quarterly inspections, preventive maintenance actions, filter replacements. Each one of them, I think, has 16 or 20 large like furnace filters in them, and then an annual belt replacement. We had 2 units. I'm sorry, I don't remember if it was 1 unit twice or 2 different units where the filter racks rotted away. And we had to fabricate something to get them, the filters back into the unit. So when the fan kicks on, it doesn't suck them into the fan itself. Going back to 2006, we've had 2006 when I first got my position, we've had water leaks with these ever since I got the position. I'm assuming beforehand. Every rain, water comes in through them. Back in 2006 or 2007, we tried to overfire the gas parts of the unit to see if it was condensation coming off of wet buses, collecting on the tin and dropping back down. The garage got extremely hot because basically 6 furnaces were running too often. Next, we sealed off all the interior inlets to the units to make sure that it's not condensation. We've weather sealed all the doors and hatches. We've had them fully recaulked, and we had painters come in and repaint them, anything to stop water infiltration. My unprofessional opinion is it's a design issue with the doors and the way the louvers are in the vents. That's my 2 cents. So this is a picture of our current building automation system. The original one was a Delta control system. I think it is a pretty analog system. It ran off of relays. There wasn't as many electronics in it. And this is what controls all of our fans. Back when that Delta system was installed up to 97 for our expansion, our parking area doubled and we just piggybacked onto that system. So parking was about half the size when the original system was installed. That system also controlled our boiler. So did this one. This is our current Metasys. So in 2006, this was upgraded to this system, which is a little bit of a challenge. We don't have a cable to communicate with it. I did find one person in one company that has a cable. So we can't troubleshoot it. We can't diagnose it. We can't control it. We count on them. And they're not the vendor that won our bid. So in preparation for our propane buses, this system was tapped into again on the relay side to power the fans in the event of a propane release. So they're not even going through this system. They're going through the secondary step, the relay after the system to control the fans if we detect propane. So getting into the health and safety for the ventilation system, they expel the dirty air from the building. It could be any byproduct from an internal combustion motor, any type of fuel vapors, the amount of dust that we get in the winter after the salt has come off the buses and dried, and 200 buses pull through our garage, it kick up a lot of dust. So there's a lot of dust along with pollen and humidity. These motors too will be explosion proof because of they have the potential of pulling propane through the ventilation system. The code for air changes an hour is 5.5. When our build, if the board approves this, our building will meet code again. So our evaluation proved to me that the other 3 recommendations were accurate. And so all this is for employee safety. maintain good air quality. My whole crew spends 40 hours a week in the garage providing air quality. Our drivers, they're in and out often. Everyone's around a lot of diesel engines or internal combustion engines. Our current system can't be programmed to operate during peak times. Anyone can override the system by pushing a button. It will come on at 15 minutes, but that leaves it up to someone's interpretation. My department can force the system on anytime and let it run for longer than 15 minutes, but that's inefficient because people forget to force it back off and it could run extended periods of times. So early on, when we decided to take this off the plate for the construction project, we decided to go out for an RFP, a request for proposals. We knew we wanted to interview proposers. And again, I thought I was sure that not all of these needed replace. So if we went out for bids, we'd have to pre-evaluate the systems ourselves and specify each unit that we want, which would have driven up our cost. We scored our proposals on project understanding, project implementation, the plan, the actual equipment, past performance, and then we did a vendor interview, and then also on price. We selected the lowest price too as part of the best value. And the proposed price was lower than our independent cost analysis or estimate, sorry. So I'm going to try and nutshell this. Andrea talked about this a little bit. This is why the difference between an RFP and a bid. So the experts can pitch what is the best value in their opinion. Vendors can evaluate our equipment and recommend either we repair or replace. With the bids, they're only evaluated on price. We determine before the project, and price is the only thing. We could be wrong. Bids would require, with outside input, for us to specify the exact quantities and exact equipment that we want, or an approved equal. Andrea talked a little bit about Buy America, but this is a construction project, so it's prevailing wage too. So a lot of that is determined for us, being Buy America and the wages. The vendor would on a bid, a vendor would not be able to evaluate or make recommendations. So the best value is the total package. Sometimes price is not the best value. An example is we buy original equipment brake parts and we get twice the life of some of the aftermarket parts. So even though they're cheaper, they're not the best value. On this project, we did select a lower cost, but again, it was in our opinion the best value. With the RFP, we could also do interviews and learn the reasoning behind the proposal. We went a step further and we proved them right. Bids don't allow us to do that. So for us, we sent the RFP out on May 11th. It was sent directly to 17 HVAC vendors. HVAC vendors, although we're only bidding on ventilation, not the AC part of it. It was advertised in the News Herald and on our website. 6 vendors came to Laketran, attended the pre-proposal meeting. They had techs up on our roof. We gave them 3 days to go on the roof and go through our equipment. We received 2 proposals, one from Have Inc. and one from Realmec. Andrea, Mark, and myself interviewed both companies, and we scored them individually on past performance, responsibility, capacity to perform the work, their installation plan, and an explanation of why a full replacement was recommended. So Have was the best, scored the best between all of us as the best value for Laketran. They had a better proposal, it was more comprehensive. They specified which equipment they were going to use. Both vendors proposed the same equipment. They both had the actual same supplier, offered to come into both interviews. They spent time, they called our building inspector to ensure that weight issues won't be an issue on the roof, that we wouldn't have to get engineered stamp drawings. This equipment should be lighter. They talked to our roofing contractor to make sure our warranty would be maintained and what they have to do it. They've done other big projects for Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health, Swedlock, and Kennemental. And I know they've also worked for the county engineers on the next street over. They had a lower overall cost, again, below our cost estimate. So my recommendation is to approve the attached resolution authorizing the CEO or his designee to enter into a contract with Have Inc. Heating and Air Conditioning for the purchase and installation of air handling units and exhaust fans at a cost not to exceed $946,820. I'll answer any questions. I learned a lot about ventilation. And it's the most I've talked in a board meeting.
Thanks, Keith. Are there any questions for Keith at this time?
Hey, Keith, could you go back one slide?
Yes.
The cost differential there, and you said they were both the same supplier, so I'm assuming they would have gotten the same pricing from the supplier of the ventilators. So is it all labor in the pricing that?
I remember, I might ask Andre to help me. I remember the mobilization for Relmac was considerably higher just to mobilize.
Okay.
They're both renting different crane companies and rigging companies.
I mean, it could also be their own markup,
Yes.
their profit. But let's see. Relmex mobilization was higher by a significant amount.
Okay. Yeah, mobilization, that's the insurances and that's the, just to get on site and those kind of expenses that they have, getting the permits and things like that too, that's needed, right?
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Keith, thank you for the information.
Oh, my pleasure.
So with the new units that are being proposed, will they have more accessibility for, more complete repair opportunities than the old ones? I think you had mentioned that. Just wanted to make sure that that's the case.
They should have top mounted dampeners, and our original unit, the one unit that was replaced in 2015,
Yeah.
the motor on it is actually the size of about a football instead of a 55-gallon drum. You should probably still lower it down with a rope off the roof, but you probably could climb down a ladder with it.
Okay. And then of the 17 RFPs that were sent out, only 2 quotes came back?
Only 2 proposals, yes. 6 people attended the meeting, but only 2 people proposed. And our current vendor did not propose.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
If you could help me and perhaps some of the others understand how this will dovetail with the building expansion, because the garage will be expanded also, correct?
The plan is to expand the garage. That ventilation is in that plan. That's done. That's going to be designed by Bowen. So this has nothing to do with any additions at all. And this is just ventilation in basically the fuel bays, the maintenance bays, and the parking area.
So this is the existing area.
Correct.
And it will be added to with the expansion.
Correct, to meet the code.
Okay. Thank
And
you for that.
the timeline, if you were asking about the timeline, if we get approval, both vendors told us they could hold these prices through this board meeting. They're hoping to get done before the snow flies, if we get approval. So it should be done before construction, full facility construction gets all the way underway.
And it's important, Donna, the reason that you're seeing this project separated today is because as we looked at the building expansion project, and this was a big piece of it, this was a big piece that was independent enough that it made sense to remove from the main project, because anything in the main project, you have to pay a general contractor markup, which is usually around 9%. So by taking this out and doing it ourselves, on top of the fact that we believe we got a much better price than we originally expected, we saved a minimum of the general contractor markup of 9%. So in $1 million project, we saved $100,000 just by doing it ourselves. Although, Keith, do you recall what the original estimates we got from another company were?
Mark, not down to the penny, Mark worked with another person who's Relmac, and they went through and evaluated everything before we were going out for a proposal, and their 1.9 was what our ICE was. And their bid came in at 1.1. So even with them, with competitive bidding, they dropped $900,000 or $800,000.
Yeah, I would say that's the value of going out for a competitive procurement is, these vendors want to win our business and they really sharpen their pencils.
Keith, great presentation, very
Thank you.
thorough as usual.
A
So
little nervous.
just a couple questions that come to my mind here that I didn't see in the material and I didn't hear you talk about, but maybe you did. One, for the integration of the operations of the fans with the Johnson Control system, who is responsible for that? And was that part of the bid package?
I believe it was part of the request for proposals. I know has reached out to VL Chapman, who's the electrician we use a lot. They're actually the ones that tied in the propane detection system to these controls.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if Have Inc. will use them, but part of their due diligence before proposing, they've already had the conversations.
So they're going to be responsible for making sure that the Johnson Control system is integrated with these new fans that you're getting.
Oh, for the fans, yes,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The propane, that they can hire Chapman if they.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
think-
they understand that it's already, there's an alignment there and the Johnson Control system can handle these 17 new.
Yeah,
No,
the scope of work was to include a new BAS.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Oh,
includes,
okay.
that
So it's going to be replaced.
that includes a new one, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what Keith's
Yeah.
response was supposed to be is the propane detection system is independent and not being replaced. And that will be tied in to the Johnson Control system, which Have is providing.
Yeah.
I might have skipped over it in the presentation too, but the current one, with the new one, we should be able to get it off the cloud through an app and Mark, myself, so whoever has access to it would be able to control it or monitor it remotely.
Yeah.
That's not my strong suit.
No. And I mean, it would be a miracle. I mean, there's not that many people that do have that strong suit that are.
One of the oldest rumors in the building is I can control the temperatures of people's office from my desk. And
Right.
it's never been true. Ask anyone in admin.
And the other thing that just occurs to me, and if you've looked at it, great. If you haven't, it's fine too. But maybe we should. If you haven't looked at it, I just when I'm thinking about the 5 fans not working all together, and they apparently haven't been working all together for quite some time.
Correct.
Has anybody looked at the warranty for how long those fans are supposed to work? And then with the deterioration that you've seen, look at the warranty and check with the insurance to make sure that there's not some coverage there that might, help defer some of these costs.
Yeah. To be honest, I never thought of looking into a warranty. I will.
Okay.
But take me a minute to figure out where to start, but I'll look into it. I just assumed that the warranty would be up on them.
I would, I would think so too, but sometimes, the depreciable life isn't really many times related to what the warranty is. So
right.
We should actually check that.
Okay.
And especially with the workmanship, especially with the quality of the materials and the leakage.
Right.
I mean, that's unacceptable. And I'm sorry you've had to, work through that.
Some of them you could put a 5-gallon, in the right rain, you could put a 5-gallon bucket under it and empty it multiple times a day. Some of them are leaking right next to some mechanics, $120,000 toolbox.
Yeah, That's the whole safety and health thing that you were talking about. I really appreciate you splitting this thing out.
Oh.
Seems like it's a win-win.
Well, thank you.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm assuming that none of this work would impact the roof structure.
Nope, we checked all that. That was part of procurement. They've talked to our roofer for the actual roof membrane. For the structure, they're less weight than the current ones.
Okay.
During the interview, has actually told us that they talked to the building department to see if they needed stamp drawings. They told them no.
Okay.
No, it's fine. It's lighter than what's up there.
Just out of curiosity, how old is our roof? Do you happen to know?
I'm going to guess, I want to say around 2007, we might have put a roof on. Maybe 2009, we did our blacktop out here. You know, that over the 30 years, the roof has failed, went through its useful life. The blacktop has gone through its useful life in about 2009. And as the board knows, or the ones that have been here, we're starting to do sections of concrete. So the roof, I want to say 2007, 2008 time range.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And it is still under warranty.
Yes.
It's inspected how many times a year?
Biannually.
And as far as your question about weight, the other thing to add is the original roof was a gravel ballast roof and the current roof is membrane. So the weight rating for the roof is less of a concern than it even used to be.
Any other questions or comments for Keith? Mr. Sheets?
Make sure I'm on here.
You're on.
Okay. In your equipment evaluation, I see that, what's the difference between proposal and interview?
We rescored them after the interview. The reason it's structured that way is, if we had gotten 6 proposals, we wouldn't have interviewed everyone. Since we only received 2, we interviewed both firms. So they were their proposals were scored on the same, on that metric. And then after the interview, they were rescored.
That's not the question. What's the difference between proposal and interview? How can you rate Relmec, if that's the pronunciation?
Yeah.
8.3 points lower than Have Inc. on the proposal, but they're pretty close, within 1.3 numbers on the interview. So what's the difference between the interview and the proposal? Because that sways, that 33 rating versus 25 sways it to their
The proposal was the written document that they returned to us. So we scored that on the predefined criteria. We sent each vendor a list of questions so they knew what we were going to ask at the interview. And then we had other questions that we added to it. So they were prepared for roughly half the questions. So.
And the reason one of the reasons for the difference between Relmec's proposal and their interview is that they did not provide the name of the equipment that they were proposing in their proposal, which damaged their score, but they gave us that information during their interview.
They didn't supply a list of the equipment?
No.
Well, then how in the world can you say the equipment's the same?
What they're saying is in the proposal, they did not provide that equipment list, but they did eventually provide it in the interview. So then, because it was not in their proposal, they got a 25. And then in their interview, they provided that list, which bumped their score up to a 30. So what happened was, they evaluated the written document and gave it 1 score. So like under project understanding, have got 12.7 in the written document. Then when they interviewed them and discussed the items with them, they rescored the overall proposal and changed the scores based on that discussion. So then, for project understanding, for example, have went from 12.7 to 14 because they may have filled in some missing blanks. In the case of Relmec, in the equipment section, They didn't provide equipment in the proposal, but then they gave it to us in the interview. So it's sort of a second check process to make sure that what they put in the proposal is the correct thing for us to evaluate. So that's when the scores get slightly adjusted. Either way, whether you're looking at the proposal of RELMEC or the interview, they scored worse both times than have.
Just out of curiosity, so you send out 16, 17 bids, only 6 responded, and then from there, we only got 2 proposals. Is that typical?
No, we had more than that for air conditioning in the server room, I think. Not typical. I'm not even sure. I don't know if Mark remembers how many people were even on the roof. People had spent time here. We walked through it and they spent time. I wouldn't say it's real typical, no. It might be past, my assumption, past what they could commit to this year.
So you put a time frame on when they could do the job. Is that right?
Not early on.
No, but
We asked for their timeline.
It is typical for us to get some interest, but limited proposals. You know, working with government purchasing can be a frustrating process for a lot of companies. They don't want to fill out the paperwork. The fact that these units have to be Buy America and they have to use prevailing wage. Sometimes those are things that people don't want to deal with. So it's not that uncommon to have, you know, and we didn't necessarily send out 17 proposals. Anyone would have been open to bid. Andrea sent the proposal documents to 17 companies we had on file, but anybody in the country could have bid on the project. And then 6 people were interested, came to the pre-bid, and eventually, for whatever reason, said, we don't want to do this and didn't submit a proposal. So that's not that abnormal of a process. We got 3 responses on server air conditioning. So you always want more, but unfortunately, working with the government is not everyone's favorite thing. Wish it was.
Did you say that the Bowen said that 1.1 million or 946,000 was 1.9 million in their original?
No, we worked with RELMEC while we assumed this was under Bowen's scope to get a cost estimate of what a full replacement would cost. Even before we decided to go out for an RFP, it was RELMEC's opinion that it would be 1.9.
Is that for the entire roof then, including the expansion?
No. No, it might have been every unit on the roof, ventilation unit, not air conditioning. Like the 3 I pointed out early on, the one in the east corner, the oil room, the maintenance department, and the training room. That might have included all those. I don't remember exactly what they all included, but it wasn't Bowen's opinion, it was RELMEC's opinion.
Yeah, the letter we have from RELMEC from December of 2020 includes the 8 MAUs, 25 exhaust fans, and a toilet exhaust fan. And their estimate, not doing a proposal because it was just an estimate for our independent cost estimate, was 1.9 million. So that was, 7 months ago.
Something just doesn't seem right here, that's all. Doesn't make any sense.
We did question them during the interview just because usually the ice isn't so far off, and they, just said that their vendors, the providers of the actual equipment, just really sharpened their pencils. They really these vendors really wanted to do this work for us.
Is there something, Lane, that we can give you more information on, or something you specific that you find at issue?
Well, RELMEC is a 88-year-old company. They've been in business forever and a day. And I don't know how old Inc. is. Never heard of him. I don't want to see us going down this road 10 years from now saying, well, boy, we got the wrong this or that, or something's wrong. And I mean, for whatever reason, the whole ventilation system is totally out of compliance, really. It's not doing the job it should do to clear that garage of
Right.
air. How long's that been going on? And why did we do something about this 5 years ago? 3 years
At the
ago?
time, the board, because of funding, I don't remember if it made it to the board, but it was tabled because of funding.
How long ago was that? Do you know?
Probably about 2008, 2009. For the makeup errors, for the makeup air units. And it's been on our TAM plan and our capital plan since. And Relmac's been a good vendor to us.
That's
Relmac
what I
is,
thought. Yeah.
they used to service Laketran back in the day. Jerry Micus, their old salesman, was actually the person that worked with John Avina to do our maintenance PM schedule and plan for it, where components weren't added. I hate to talk bad about a good vendor, but things were missed. And I never thought, being a bus guy, that I should follow up.
Well, they're not going to
An
be,
HVAC guy and an engineer to see if they missed anything for a louver.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we like the company or not. You know, the procurement process stipulates how we have to go through this process. The form that Andrea talked about documents whether or not they are capable of doing the work as they have said they did. We did that analysis. Both companies were capable. And so as a result of that, both companies are eligible to do the project. We expected it to be Relmec. You know, Keith and I both expected that because they had helped us originally identify things. So they kind of, had some information more than their competitor because they helped us analyze things. So we naturally thought they would win. But when you go through the process, this is what the process yields. The same exact thing happened when we installed the propane station. AmeriGas helped us with the process significantly. And so when we went to bids for the actual propane fuel, we sort of thought they would win because they understood what the project was, what the volumes were, and they got undercut by a company in Northwest Ohio. And AmeriGas was very mad at us. And they said, we helped you with this. We deserve this business. And we said, sorry, you're not the cheapest. And that's unfortunately how our procurement, government contracting procurements work. So sometimes we get surprised,
well, one thing that sticks out here that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Unit cost per exhaust fan, if they have the same number of fans from the same vendor, how come half is higher by $2,000 for the exhaust fans? How many exhaust fans are there?
There's going to be 29. There's 30 with the one that's been replaced, then the other 4 that I mentioned that we pulled out of the scope of work. So 34 in that end of the building.
I believe the confusion there, correct me, but I think the confusion there, Lane, is that the unit cost per fan is based on the total bid price divided by the number of fans. Is that not correct?
It's math, yeah.
So by definition, if the 1.120,500 would be more expensive or less expensive.
So I think
It's just the number divided by the number of fans.
Yeah, so part of it is the way the vendors choose to price the products. So halves, ventilation fans are more expensive, but their MAUs are cheaper. And so because this is all rolled together, it's not legal for us to go through and pick out and choose little pieces of each thing. We have to go with the total proposed price. The reason it's itemized at all was Keith's desire to make sure that we weren't getting sort of upsold in replacing additional fans. So we made them give us a price per unit in the event we could take some off. Normally in a process like this, they wouldn't itemize the cost. They would just give us one number. But because we were sort of skeptical of the need to replace fans, we required them to provide a unit cost.
Well, I repeat, if you have 30 fans and you divide that into 946,000 and get 7,000, how can you divide that 1.1 million into by 30 and get 5,000? Something's wrong with that.
Those are how the vendors gave us the pricing. And the same thing as the MAUs are $17,000 cheaper with HAV. So between those units being cheaper and the fans being more expensive, it balances out to equal that exact price.
The other thing is with the different size fans that are currently up there, like I said, some are the size of, well, one's the size of like a basketball, one's like your office trash can, one's like a 55-gallon drum. This, if I'm saying it right, is more of an average per unit of what each fan costs. We should have each individual fan's price, but the spreadsheet would have, or the chart would have been extremely big.
But the ultimate answer is HAV can do the project for less, which was part of the scoring process and part of why we picked them.
Well, I think it's clear something needs to be done, to bring it up to code, for the employees and for the building itself. But I do think John makes a good point that we should definitely take a look and see if there is, some type of an insurance claim, warranty claim. You even mentioned during, your presentation that there even seemed to you there could have been some faulty equipment, in terms of the way it was designed or something. Maybe there are some things there where we can go back and find out if there's monies available,
I'll definitely
through insurance or something like that. So that's my opinion at that point. Thank you.
And if there's any way to save money in the project, we always pursue that. So there's a $25,000 contingency in this number also. So in the event that they don't spend that, the total project cost will be slightly down. We just put that in case, you're taking something that's been on the roof for 30 years off, maybe a piece of the roof comes off or something happens, so there is a little bit of cushion in there in case something happens. But if there's a way to, pursue some kind of claim, I don't even know where to start, but I'm sure Keith can figure it out.
Sounds like
it. Were there any other questions for Keith at this time? I don't see any. I do want to ask one question to our legal counsel. Normally at this time, we make a motion, but if the board had asked about looking at warranty claims, what's the best way to move forward with something like that?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. The board can either table this measure for another time, subject to the additional information. One caveat I would add, to the extent that it's helpful, and maybe just a little bit of my background, but typically for things like this, insurance claims aren't necessarily viable. It's going to be a cause of loss. There had to be some extensive cause of loss to each one of those that would trigger that insurance coverage per se, unless there was coverage purchased at the time that would have essentially covered all these units in and of themselves. But insurance doesn't necessarily work as a maintenance policy. You think of your auto insurance, comprehensive collision claims, there is an actual occurrence, which then triggers that coverage. That's not to say, however, there wouldn't be warranty claims that would have been provided with these units or along the line with insurance policy at that time.
Closer to the microphone.
Sorry. Me to restate that, or did you hear what I? But to answer your question as well, yes, if the board chooses not to move forward with this right now, they could simply table it pursuant to the additional information being requested, and at that time, bring it back to the board's attention at a later meeting.
Mr. Martin, did you have a question?
Well, yeah, I mean, my only concern, Brandon, and we can, discuss later, is that if these units did not operate as intended and caused damage, and we didn't get the benefit of those operations of those fans and damage was caused, then our property insurance carrier should be able to explain to us why they would not help us with that. Or, maybe we need to look at that contract with the property insurance carrier.
Our property, we're self-insured through the OTRIP risk pool. So if there was a claim against our property insurance, we'd be claiming it against the Ohio Transit risk pool versus an actual insurance company. So the process isn't quite the same.
Yeah, but if it doesn't operate as it should, then I don't care if it's the pool in Columbus or whether it's a separate carrier altogether that's, insuring that pool. We shouldn't because we don't know these answers, not look into this and try to figure out why we had these fans that were defective, probably, and not operating for 5 years that we're replacing now, and get somebody to at least tell us affirmatively that we don't have a claim for insurance. I don't care where it comes from, but an insurance claim on something like this. This is not something that I think the people of this would be an operating. This is going to be an operating expense going forward. It's going to be part of the occupancy costs going forward here, and it's something that it's going to be borne by everybody that Laketran serves.
Thank you, John. Taking your comments into consideration, I'm also going to ask this of Mr. Dines. Is it possible to propose the resolution, but include language after all warranty and insurance claims have been explored, we agree for the CEO or his designee to enter into a contract?
Absolutely. The motion can be modified however the board pleases, subject to then accepting a vote.
Okay, and part of the reason that I would be interested in doing this way instead of possibly tabling it is we do not have a board meeting next month. And although this issue has gone on for a very long time, Keith, I always encourage you to bring safety issues to us immediately. There is, to me, some safety issues. So I would like to see this proposed immediately, taking into account that we are going to explore insurance and warranty claims before we enter into any contract.
Well, one of the other things before it's tabled, if it was discussion about tabling, they can only hold the prices into early August.
Well,
even if the distributor.
I think the other important distinction is I think exploring insurance claims is absolutely something we want to do. It makes perfect sense. That would come in as a revenue, and this procurement process would remain the same. So it would essentially be, we would still have to use this same process and this same price. We wouldn't be able to say, spend, take it off the top of the actual expenditure. We would have to go forward with this expenditure as it stands. The insurance would be a reimbursement. So they can sort of proceed on a parallel path without a lot of risk.
Yeah, but typically, we're going to explore a warranty claim, and then typically, Mr. Dines, I believe, is an insurance expert from a past life. Generally, the insurance company likes to send their own folks out to look at it. So, I want to make sure that we're not just putting in warranty and insurance language and moving on. I want to make sure that we're going to go through the proper course to fully vet that.
Sure.
Based on what I'm possibly proposing, did anyone have any feedback or thoughts?
Yeah, if we go forward with the vote and then we get information back that, isn't, what we thought it was going to be, are we able to then adjust the way that we voted? Will there be a method to do that?
That's a fair question. I'm going to turn it over to Brandon.
So, Mr. Epic, if I understand your question, so in other words, you go forward with the vote, you pass this particular resolution, and then find out later that you get some warranty or insurance money coming back to you, right? And then are you able to modify what you've done in accordance with that?
That's correct.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question for Ben. Then, as he noted, where these monies come in and come out of play are characterized a little bit differently. So that's really the factor there that's going to be applicable. Certainly, if that money comes back on an insurance or warranty claim, the question is a lot of times with insurance and warranty claims, the insurance company and or the warranty provider wants to specifically pay for those things, right?
That's
They
correct.
want to do that. So that's why it's a good question. And that gets into some of the questions for Lisa and Ben and Mr. Martin that are mathematicians far more than I have the capability to answer.
One of the challenges, so even if, let's say we are able to secure warranty dollars and have them repaired, there's still some, I guess a better way to kind of think about it is this is your maximum exposure today. So if we're able to get a reduction in the cost, we will do our best to do that. We want to spend as little money as possible. But as far as changing your vote, I think it's kind of the way I think Brian is talking about is you would approve up to this amount today. And then we as staff would pursue all alternatives to reducing that as we go. But you wouldn't have another opportunity to vote again. You would kind of have said, yeah, today I'm willing to spend up to this much. If we can't get any insurance money, If we can't get some insurance money, then we will spend less and we'll come back and report that to you as part of the process. But there wouldn't be another sort of vote unless we decided not to move forward today, us do the analysis and then bring it back to you again for a new vote.
That's somewhat correct. I would propose it after all warranty and insurance claims have been explored, and I would propose it at a cost not to exceed.
What in the case if it does come back as a warranty, and as Mr. Dines and you had mentioned, the company comes back and says, we want to provide, our labor, our equipment, whatever it may be. And now we're not going to spend $936,000. We're going to spend, $500,000 because, portion of the equipment's covered. What protection do we have as a board to be able to say, well, yeah, we did vote on $936,000 or whatever, or $946,000, but, now it's going to be less.
Sure. How do you piece it out? If it's 25 fans and not 30, how do you come to a fair compromise? Brandon, have you looked at this particular contract yet?
Yeah, I have not studied the contract in full with Have Incorporated. The idea there, though, is the board, upon a second, you can always modify a resolution, right? There's times where we say, we'll put a resolution into effect, and some of our language there indicates that where any prior resolutions are hereby modified, superseded, or amended, or otherwise by the new one. So you could certainly go back and do that. Resolutions can always be modified after the fact if new information is forthcoming. So that, and I'm sorry I didn't answer your question before, that is something that can be done when new information is learned. That all dovetails into kind of what Ben said and Keith said and timing as far as the contract goes. But yeah, the board can take some retroactive action per se. It's just a matter of going through those processes, and I would lead you through that at that time if that was what we needed to do to craft an appropriate resolution.
Thank you.
Well, and to an extent, your protection would also be, since we have a per unit cost, every unit that would be removed from the project, we know what their amount is. So that's like this amount you see here would be the exact amount removed for every fan that might be under warranty. So you would know, we don't know how many fans might be in this category, but you would know exactly how much money the amount paid out would be reduced by.
And of course, we'd be relying on Mr. Dines to, thoroughly review a contract, whether it's for landscaping or for something that's this large, to make sure that we are protected appropriately should we be able to make a warranty or an insurance claim. Any other comments? At this time, is there a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the CEO or his designee to enter into a contract with Have Heating and Air Conditioning for the purchase and replacement of the garage ventilation system at a cost not to exceed $946,820 after all warranty and insurance claims have been explored?
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. McNamee. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Zibble. Vicky, if you could please call the roll.
Epic,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
McNamee,
Yeah.
Sheets,
No.
Spence,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Zibble.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. And Keith, you can go return to your more comfortable seat where I know you like it better. Looks like we are going to go back to Lisa for the 2020 CAFR. Whatever makes you happy.
My slides are only 4 pages. I do have a typo that I need to correct, but I'll correct that when I get to it. I just want to go over very briefly the audited financial statements and certified annual financial CAFR, which you do have in your packet. The Ohio Auditor of State requires each government entity to have an annual audit. Just a little bit of background too, the state auditors are also the ones that put out to bid for government agencies to be audited. And for CPAs, we don't get to choose it. I participate in the process, but they're the ones that are in charge of that. And they chose this year to do that audit. And then we hired Laketran hired James G. Zupka to do our CAFR, which is also audited by the state auditor's office. So at the end of this, for 2021, I do not know yet who will be doing our audit, but the state auditors did make mention at our audit review that they were interested in doing it and like to do it for 2 years. So I won't know more about that till closer to the end of the year, and I will keep the board abreast of who will be doing the audit. So on the second page, Laketran's audited financial statements. Laketran has a single audit report of federal awards for the year ended 12/31 of 20. That's located on pages 80 through 93 of the board packet and was issued by the Ohio State Auditor's Office on 5/28 of 21. We had no findings. We did have a couple comments for recommendation, and I listed those here. One is our logical access, IT logical access with passwords required for individual applications. We were able to correct, not really correct, but we changed them to make them more secure. We still have a couple that we will be waiting on, or not waiting on, but I'll let Tony speak to that a little bit more, but we're updating those now. And then the second thing was a disaster recovery plan and testing. So again, these were not findings, they were comments and recommendations for us to do going forward. And then on the third page, which is where I have my typo, it should be 12/31 of 20 and audit spelled correctly with AUDIT. But this is basically our single audit summary for our federal awards. We had no material weaknesses in internal control reported at the financial statement level. There were no significant deficiencies in control reported at the financial statement level. There was no reported material non-compliance at the financial statement level. And there was no material weaknesses in internal control reported for the for the major federal programs. There was also no significant deficiencies in internal control reported for the major federal programs. And we got an unmodified opinion, and that is the best opinion that you can get in an audit. And then on the last page, I did choose to pull out just kind of a little history for the statement of revenues and expenses and changes in net position. I did summarize it. It is in more detail, which is located on page 127 of the board packet or page 14 of the actual CAFR. We had operating revenues in 2020 of $1,166,379. This is basically consist of your fares. And in 19, it was $2,872,682. And the reason why that's lower is due to the COVID. And also we did not charge fares. I don't remember the exact date that we stopped, but I know that it went through till the end of September. We have our operating expenses for 2020 at $19,169,000 and our 2019 at $20,417,000. And then of course, depreciation and our total operating expenses. So you can kind of see a little bit of a decrease there for 2020. Our total non-operating revenues is at $29 million for 2020 and about $13.6 million for 2019. And again, part of that for the revenue is due to the increase in the sales tax and some of the extra grants which we got from due to COVID, and it kind of nets out. So our net position overall for 2020 is at about $40.6 million versus $28.6 million in 2019. And then if you have any questions, or if I could go into more details, because the CAFR is pretty big. There is a lot of notes that the auditors put in there. And I think that they did note about the COVID and like the OPERS changes or how we do the OPERS calculation and all that. But if you have any questions, I will try to answer them. If I am not able to, I will certainly speak with Zupka and get those answers answered for you.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions at this time for Lisa? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept Laketran's 2020 audited financial statements as prepared by the Ohio State Auditor's Office and the 2020 CAFR as prepared by James Zutka, G. Zupka, CPA, Inc.?
So moved.
Motion made by
Second.
Ms. Spence. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sheets. Vicky, if you could please call the roll.
Epic,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
McNamee,
Yeah.
Sheets,
Yes.
Spence,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Zibble.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Ben for the 6-month look ahead.
All right, thank you very much. 6-month look ahead. We have, most important thing to kind of take note of is the board retreat. It is scheduled for 10 to 4 on the 27th, with the board meeting to immediately follow at 4. When I wrote this slide, the location had not been determined. It has been determined. I will send out information to all of you soon once we haven't gotten the reservation secured yet, so I don't want to say it exactly until I know for sure they have accepted our reservation. The things we have planned for in September outside of the retreat is the headquarters construction agreement is still on the schedule. We have the potentially a cornerstone contract renewal, 1 option year of 2, and a routine update to the policy manual in October. Right now, we have a plan for dial-a-ride replacement vehicles. This will be the last round of vehicles purchased under our existing contract. So we go out for 5-year contracts for replacement vehicles. This is the 5th year of that. So this will be the last order with our current vendor. We will then engage in a procurement process the next time we need to order vehicles. This is for the sort of traditional propane-powered dial-a-ride buses that we have quite a few of. We have the last piece of the electrical vehicle project. The board has already approved the purchase of the actual charging equipment. This is the actual charging equipment installation and construction here at this building. In November, we will have a presentation of the operating and capital budget. We will have a approval request for gasoline and diesel purchasing authority. This is a routine process. For those of you that have been with us for a while, we do this every year. We cooperatively purchase fuel with other transit systems. And the thing that's odd about this is there is essentially a 24 or a 48-hour window from when the procurement is let to when we can approve the agreement. So we ask for board approval in advance to enter into the agreement if it is favorable. We've been doing this for years. The pricing has always been very favorable. There's a group of transit systems that do it. We do procure propane separately. So that's why you see only gasoline and diesel here. In December, I guess I should say the operating capital budget will be presented. Then in December, we would request approval for the operating and capital budget. And then the most exciting thing you guys have all been waiting for in 2022, or we will request approval for the meeting schedule for 2022. And as of right now, I do not have any items for January. So I'm going to roll on into CEO report.
Please.
So CEO report real quick. I know we've gone past my personal time objective here, but I'll try to be brief. Headquarters project, we're still on schedule. The bid documents are planned to be completed by the end of July, with bids going out in early August, so that we should have the numbers back to the board by the September meeting. Strategic plan, I mentioned, Tim mentioned this, WSP was here on site, worked with the staff. I put on here the location will be the Geneva on the Lake. I'm not sure that's correct. I will get back to you on that one. But make sure you mark your calendar for 10 a.m. for the retreat. Electric buses. I think some of you had the opportunity to ride one today. The commissioning process is working along well. The Lakeland Community College site is fully commissioned and able to be used. So we're beginning the training process, and they are wrapping up the other 2 chargers, or the other 3 chargers that are installed. So we're very excited about that. The charger commissioning process has gone pretty smoothly. ABB and New Flyer have been on site working on that for quite a while, and we have completed quite a number of successful charges at the Frank Polifka Transit Center, which is my next item. The grand opening is this week, Thursday at 11 o'clock. I would hope you all have the opportunity to join us. There's quite a list of folks that are going to be there. Frank invited quite a few people, but also we'll have some elected officials. I think, is the FTA still coming? No, FTA is not coming anymore. The Ohio EPA with our ODOT and NOACA Chambers of Commerce and all those folks. So should be a good event. I will real quick. I knew our meeting could run a little long, so I don't have a director's report that's formal, but I do have a couple things I think Tony would like to update us on regarding the passwords and the ongoing server project.
Thank you. The password that finding that we had in the audit, that was resolved with the server upgrade project that is in place with the new controllers for the network. We kicked off the second part of that request, which was our timekeeping. We use Timeforce, which is an online web-based application. And we put in a password policy last week. I worked with them and that is rolled out, and that will force permanent password changes from this point forward. The second part of that is our disaster recovery plan. We started working on this with Cornerstone when we did our contract renewal with them last year. We were doing some work on that. We had a plan in place on May 18th for what we were going to do. And then unfortunately, as I stated in my report, we hit a delay here because they lost their two most senior people, and they have all my knowledge with them, with what we were working on, is gone for the time being. I had an emergency meeting with them last week to go over, and it's like, well, where do we stand and how do we get back on track? And met with the owner and the project manager, and we sat down, and he assured me that he has two senior techs that will be starting here within the first 2 weeks of August, and we will be back on track. As a matter of fact, the project manager and one of his techs and I will be working on one of the servers getting migrated over starting tomorrow morning here at the HQ facility to get us back where we belong. But the disaster recovery part, I would hope to have an update here as soon as they get a senior guy in there and we can pick up where we left off back on May 18th. So I don't have the best news on that one, but we are working on it, and I hope to have an update for you when I do my report in September. So.
Any questions for Tony? Thank you very much, Tony. Ben, any other CEO administrative news?
That is it from us.
Okay. Is there any old business in the room? Is there any new business in the room? At this time, is there a motion to adjourn today's Board of Trustees meeting? Motion made by Ms. McNamee. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Swanson. Vicky, if you could please call the roll.
Epic,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
McNamee, Sheets, Spencer.